a demonstration on Friday, the 18th of March, called at the last minute after announcement yesterday of 800 workers being flushed out of P&O. Disgusting, but great to be here. A great event, great turnout.
What we've got to tell this lot is that we're not going away. We are going to press on, we're going to embarrass them, we're going to shame them, we're going to hound them, we're going to do whatever we need to do to get our people justice. And we're going to say to this government, you've got to intervene. And the message down there from the Dover shipping members and right across the country is they've got to seize these vessels now and take them into government ownership and stop them bringing in a crew that's untrained, unfamiliar and unaccustomed to running these vessels, because they're going to put the public in danger, they're going to put shipping in danger right across the Channel and across the North Sea and the Irish Sea. This whole thing is entirely unacceptable. It's a great big conspiracy. Some of us are conspiracy theorists, but we've got a good case here, I'll tell you that. Because I spoke to the Minister yesterday night from 10 to 6, and he told me face to face that they were told on Wednesday night, before this happened, that P&O were going to carry out this plan. He didn't lift a finger, he didn't lift the telephone, he didn't inform anyone that this was going on. And our clear message to him is, if you're asleep on the job, you're no good. And if you're colluding with them because you're not doing anything to protect our members and standards in this country, then you've got to go. The only way you can't go is if he protects our people. They've shown in the last couple of weeks that they can bring in emergency legislation, that they can seize the assets of oligarchs, and that's what they need to do now. Because this lot owned by the richest, one of the richest families in the world. The Sultan of Dubai is the direct owner, and he's responsible for this stitch-up. So if they want to rectify this, the government's got to put them under manners, seize those assets, cancel all the contracts that P&O and DP World have. These are the people that are going to bring us free ports. DP World's in the vanguard of free ports, and they're aiming to cut up safety legislation, employment legislation, job protection and all the rest of it. And it's time for the Labour movement and Keir Starmer to wake up. He introduced to give us a direct call in our Dover office this afternoon at 11:30 with our members. He heard directly from our P&O reps and members about what they're going to do. This is an open goal for the Labour Party. The dilution of employment standards in this country for the last 40 years is a national disgrace. We have the poorest employment legislation of any European country, and every single worker in this country is vulnerable. If they get away with this, the big companies and the small companies up and down this country will be saying, we can do that to our people. It just costs you a few bob in redundancy money. And the biggest scandal is there is no redundancy. If they shut a factory, you understand there might be a redundancy. All of the work is continuing. They aim to expand this company, but without our people. We cannot let fire and rehire, or fire and not hire in this case, be the standard of employee relations. So let's get that message out there. Let's make this the start of the campaign. Tomorrow morning we'll be at Blackpool, outside the Tory Party head office, the Tory Party conference, and we've got to get the message to them. They must act. The Labour Party must act. And the trade union movement must come out into the communities all across Britain and stand up for working people. And we're going to pull everyone in our direction, whether it's Starmer, whether it's anyone else. We've got to stand behind the trade unions. The trade unions have got to stand behind workers, and we're going to win this fight. Thanks for coming out.
We've got a few speakers here. There's some of our Labour members of Parliament, and there's one of our very special members of our parliamentary group here, Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you very much. What P&O have done is disgusting and is a disgrace by any standard. I was thinking this morning, what would a sensible government have done, like the one we tried to elect in 2019? Number one, stop them firing anybody by special legislation if necessary. Number two, threatening them with the removal of every government contract ready to do with P&O. Number 3, return all the loans you've received during COVID and everything else. Number 4, if you don't fulfil those first 3, then it's public ownership for P&O so that there'll be proper employers with a proper shipping line. As you quite rightly pointed out, is 40 years of retreat after retreat after retreat on employment legislation. We need to get rid of the anti-trade union legislation and empower workers to take control of a failing company if it is a failing company. That was exactly what John McDonnell and myself said in 2019, that right of workers to take control of it. What we've got here is 800 well-qualified, experienced, skilled people that know how to operate those vessels, know how to operate them safely, and know how to care for the travelling public as well as the freight. What have they been replaced with? People being brought in from goodness knows where to be paid a lot less, qualified or not, I've no idea, and neither of you. And then use security staff with balaklavas on to take away people who've worked for years and years for that company. This is the brutality of American employers against trade unions in the USA in the 1920s and 1930s. This is like Fords in Dearborn in the 1920s, being carried out here in this country. Now then, you're not alone. An awful lot of people would have seen this saga on television last night and think, wow, a company like P&O that somebody's worked for the whole of their working life can treat people like that and get away with it. Every employer will be thinking, well, if we can get away with it, we need to worry about fire and rehire, we can just drop the rehire bit. And that's what it comes to. And when the minister comes on the radio this morning and says he's very sorry, I'm grateful for his sympathy, but he said he can't do anything because he's only a minister. Well, what is the point of being in government office if you cannot do anything to protect 800 jobs of people that have given their lives to that company? So they should be doing something very urgent. Richard Bergen is here with me at the moment, and he's been going around the country doing a lot of work on trade union legislation. And so we need now to appeal to every other union to recognise that what the RMT is going through today, they will be going through tomorrow if P&O get away with this. And so I just want to say absolute full solidarity to you. There's going to be a lot more action, a lot more demonstrations. We'll be there with you in large numbers because people realise this is a fight we've got to take on. It's been brought to us, we take it on, and we win it! Yeah! We've also got Richard Bergen here, member of the RMT Parliamentary Group. So there's been coordinated protests going on today in Belfast, at Larne, in Hull and in Liverpool.
Thanks very much, Alex, and thanks Mick and thanks Jeremy. I'm proud to be here today in solidarity with the RMT union that are standing up for RMT members who are being treated like dirt by the company that's based in that office there. And it's right that you're standing up in the way that you're doing. As we've heard, the situation we saw yesterday was like when you read about the mine owners in the United States 100 years ago sending in goons and tough guys to try and get rid of workers who are standing up for their rights. It's simply not acceptable when you see images of balaklava wearing, handcuffed trains, security guards being sent in against decent working people in Britain in the 21st century. That needs to be consigned to the dustbin of history. Many people thought it was consigned to the dustbin of history, but it's back, it's here, and it's now. As Mick said earlier, this is a time when the trade union movement can be seen at its best. And I know that the trade union movement and the labour movement more broadly will answer the call for solidarity from the RMT. When we look at the history of our trade union labour movements, I hope and I'm sure that now in 2022 the wide labour and trade union movements will heed the call from the RMT when they say this won't end here if we don't defeat it. We heard it in the 80s with the miners, didn't we? When they said if they manage to beat the miners in 84 to 85, it won't stop there. They'll come for other unions and other workers after that. And as a result, we've seen decades of neoliberalism, decades of the Americanisation of our employment practices. It's an absolute disgrace that people from successive parties in government in this country have boasted that we have the most flexible workforce, or amongst the most flexible workforces in the world. And when I think of P&O, when I think of DP World, all the money they're making, money off the backs of RMT members, an absolute disgrace. And to treat the workers in the way they have, sacking people by pre-recorded Zoom call. I understand that the person on that pre-recorded video message actually had done a job against the workers in Royal Mail as well, until the Communication Workers Union stood up to him and his colleagues. So we need action from the government. I was in the House of Commons chamber yesterday and the government minister sounded very angry, but I'm afraid not being very pleased with DP World and P&O isn't enough, is it? No. He's in government, they're in government, they've got power, and as we've seen in the last few weeks, the state and the government can take action when it needs to, can take action when it wants to, including against billionaires, oligarchs and very rich and powerful interests. And we demand no less now. That means a number of things, but it should mean the government saying that P&O will not operate in British waters until this is satisfactorily resolved by discussions with the RMT. The government needs to come clean about all the money in those lucrative contracts that they've given to DP World. We've heard, haven't we, about this free port that Rishi Sunak has set up, the Gateway Freeport in London. At the end of the day, billionaires, wherever they're from, are treating working people like dirt. We can't have a situation where multinational corporations are going around the world treating working class people like this. And there is only one answer to it. And the answer is solidarity. The answer is action. The answer is the government taking action and nationalisation taking place to teach these people a lesson. Because make no mistake, DP World and P&O are trying to teach the working class a lesson, aren't they? They're trying to teach people that this is what happens and that you can't do anything about it. They're trying to teach the government and the state a lesson as well, aren't they? By saying we can do whatever the hell we want and there's nothing that even a government can do about it. Our response as a movement has to be to teach those bastards a lesson, has to be to show solidarity, has to fight back and win in the best traditions of the RMT, a fine fighting trade union. Solidarity.
RMT members are not the only trade unionists who've been unceremoniously sacked yesterday. Nautilus members have also been treated in exactly the same way. I'm very pleased and proud to say we've got the General Secretary of Nautilus, the union that represents ships masters, captains, navigators, all the top brass. Mark Dickinson is here and he's going to address.
Can you hold that for us a minute?
The eloquence of the speakers that you heard from all already, all the tempo, Richard, I'm not sure I've got the throat for it. I've been on the go all day. It's been a tough couple of days for everyone, not least our members who've lost their jobs in that outrageous fashion yesterday. No consultation with anyone. Government man had known a few hours before the rest of us, but no one has been found out. No one has found out about this until it was announced yesterday morning. It's absolutely outrageous and shoddy way to treat workers. I'm hoping, I'm praying, with the solidarity that we have internationally, our good friend Steve Cotton's here from the ITF, with our friends and sisters and brothers in ETF in Brussels, also working in support of our struggle, with all of your support, with the community support. I was with Mick in Dover just now, I just got back off the train. 400 people from that community, from our members, out in force to support us. All the truck drivers beeping their horns as they went past. I was really, really moved by that. That's going to sustain a campaign that's going to run and run and run. They can't win. They can't win. This has to be a line in the sand. Fire and rehire, sack and attack has got to end, and it's got to end now. Thank you for your
We've got solidarity wishes, and we've got some speakers from a number of trade unions and a number of other important people here that I want to introduce. First of all, I'm going to ask Tony Kearns, Senior Deputy General Secretary of the Communication Workers Union.
Hey.
To address you.
I'm not on my own.
Yeah, when this announcement was made yesterday, I mean, we mobilised to make sure that CW was at Larne this morning, Dover, Hull, and our General Secretary Dave Ward addressed the demonstration there, Port of Liverpool this morning. So, you know, the CW stands foursquare with the RMT. I just want to echo some of the points I think that Jeremy and Richard were alluding to. First of all, I do think this needs to be the watershed moment now for workers in this country and the trade union movement. We're not going to get our act together and work collegiately across the whole of this movement to defend workers at this point in time, then we're never going to do that. And so this is a bit of a wake-up call, I think, for the TUC. So a wake-up call for some trade unions. And this is what you get, I think, as Jeremy said, we've had 40-odd years of anti-trade union legislation. And I'm particularly pleased that Mick said that Keir Starmer, leader of the UK Labour Party, rang him today, which is good to know that message of solidarity. But I think that doesn't go far enough. I think what the UK Labour Party needs to do, Keir Starmer, Angela Rayner and that footprint, need to come out quite clearly and state what it is they're going to do. You see, the government says that they want to level up. If levelling up is sacking 800 workers and condemning their families to what will inevitably be poverty, given the cost of living increases in this country, then they've got it seriously wrong. And when they say, oh, well, you spoke to the government minister the night before, they're in cahoots here. Make no mistake about it, that the Conservative government's in cahoots with the boss's class to smash the workforce and smash the trade union movement. And UK Labour needs to say quite clearly what its agenda will be to support workers in trouble, to repeal all the anti-worker, anti-trade union legislation that we've seen in this country, and send a clear message that they stand on the side of workers and not the boss's class, and that will be solidarity across the whole of the trade union movement and the labour movement. We support.
When the news started breaking mid-morning yesterday, with our members sending us WhatsApp messages of Microsoft Teams videos that they were being given announcing their impending redundancy, one of the first calls we got was from the People's Assembly asking us what they could do. So John Rees, I'd just like you to say a couple of words on behalf of the People's Assembly.
It's really simple for me. I've been around long enough to have been on the picket lines when Eddie Shah started smashing up the print unions. I've been on the picket line at Wapping. And this dispute looks like that dispute. It looks like an employer that's out to smash one union so that they can smash all the unions. And this is a line in the sand, and we've got to stop them right now. Your union, the RMT, whenever the People's Assembly against austerity has called a demonstration against cuts to welfare, against job losses, against attacks on living standards, your union has been there with us, and we will be there with you. People campaigning against austerity know that the one reason working people are in austerity is because they can't get decent, well-paid jobs, and that's going to add to poverty and austerity right across this country if the RMT doesn't win this battle. So we're with you, and I agree with everything that your General Secretary said. If they can seize the yachts of Russian oligarchs they can seize P&O Ferries to give people in this country. And I'll tell you one thing. The guy who owns this company is a sultan in Dubai. Now, he may think that stoning people in the streets is good policy, but he's not going to get away with stoning the working people in this country. He's not going to get away with taking their jobs, ruining their livelihoods, and attacking the trade union movement. So whatever it takes. If you call a demonstration, we'll help you build it. If you want people on the picket lines, we'll be there with you. And fuck the trade union laws. We've got the worst trade union laws in Europe, and they're meant to stop people from resisting and keeping their jobs and defending their livelihoods. And if it takes action with every single trade unionist supporting the RMT, then I'm for that action until these people are beaten back. Because we've had a generation now of working people paying. We have to pay for COVID, we have to pay for the war, we have to pay for everything, and the rich get richer and we get poorer. It's got to stop, and disputes like this can stop it. All power to your elbow, we're right behind you. Full solidarity to the RMT.
We've just come from Dover, where we had, very pleased to have a speaker from the International Transport Workers Federation, Dockers section. The RMT's forerunner was one of the unions that's been involved in the ITF pretty much since its formation. And I'm very proud that General Secretary Steve Cotton is here. So, Steve, would you like to say a few words?
Thanks, Alex. Brothers and sisters, we've had enough!
Yay!
Accept this! Yesterday, all those men and women who went to work, who went through COVID, provided supply chains, defended our society, were thrown on the scrap heap. Are we going to accept it?
No!
I'm not accepting this. I'm here on behalf of the 20 million ITF members to send a message to DP World. This is the worst example of globalisation. We will not have it. Brothers and sisters, do you accept it?
No!
What are we going to do? We're going to fight! What are we going to do? Fight! Take the fight to Dubai. Every single worker around the world in the supply chain wants to take them on. Why? Because this isn't a British problem. This isn't an English problem. This isn't a Dover Hull problem. This is a society problem in the world. The rich are getting richer, and American men and women are paying for it. What are we going to do? We're going to stop them.
Fight!
When are we going to stop them? Now! What are we going to do? When are we going to fight? Now! We've moved the ITF right behind you. The court case here, the government and the unions around the world will bring global solidarity to each and every one of those men and women treated disgracefully yesterday. Brothers and sisters, this is our chance to fight back. Are you ready?
Yes!
Are you ready?
Yes! Over the top. Thank you, Steve. Stands the secretary of what used to be the South East region, the TEC, London Eastern and South Eastern region. Well done, you got it right. So he's the secretary who coordinates all of the affiliated unions across the South East and London, and you might say
almost everything's been said, but not by everybody, and as Steve just said, follow that. So that's fine, but seriously, on behalf of our TEC region and the wider TEC, colleagues who are there with a banner, we're down here in full solidarity. It's been said already that this is going to be a fight for all of us. We're standing here outside DP World headquarters in London. I was just on Radio Clint. Radio Clint said, but surely P&O have been losing money. They've got to do something about it. So, if you're that, we said, sack 800 loyal, hard-working, skilled workers. Of course it bloody is. We said, we're losing money. We said, DP World gave hundreds of millions in share dividends during the pandemic. We've paid already for riches. They've invested in Freeports, Thames Freeports, Solent Seaports. This is a major multinational. They have no need to do this. What do we want? We want everybody to be reinstated now. What do we want? We want laws which will stop this ever happening again. This level of insecurity, the fact that workers have been on that board, somebody in touch with Zoom, pre-recorded Zoom videos, be told, and then the government say, we're looking into whether this is legal. I mean, seriously, this is not legal. There should have been consultations, there should have been negotiations, they should have sat there with the recognised unions and discussed the economics of the situation with the RMT and lawyers. Did that happen? No. Is that shameful? Yes. Do we stand together and fight back? Yes.
I'm not speechless, but the best will last. So we've got Mark Thomas here. So Mark, give us your best.
Oh, mate! I'm really sorry. The last person you wanted to hear from on a demonstration like this is a comedian. I'm really sorry about that. We love you. I know. And it's important that as a class, that's what we do with each other. We get out and we support each other. We show solidarity. We show love. That's what we do. Now, I want to just say, also, it's lovely that the police are here. I guess they've had enough kicking out squatters from oligarchs' flats. Yes. They've searched all the 15-year-olds going, so it's great they're here. But let's be clear about this. These people are the worst kind of capitalist bastards out there. That's what they are. Poaching, that's what they are. Yeah. They behave with impunity, they behave with thuggery, they behave with violence, and they behave against the law. For Boris Johnson to say he doesn't know whether it's legal, he wouldn't know if something was illegal if he got handed over. Sorry, I ran out of breath there. But look, the serious point here is this. Everyone knows this is the moment when we have to go out and organise. We have to work, we have to build, because this is, like Chris says, this is like the Eddie Shahs. Yep. These are like the Rupert Murdochs. Yes. These are like the Budgies and all the people from the Thatchers. That's what this is. This is a moment when we either stand up and fight or lose. That's our option. Now, you know what Bob Crow said? If you get up and fight, you might win. You might lose. But if you don't fight, you're gonna lose. Yeah. We will lose every time unless we stand up and join forces and work across the labour movement, across the trade union movement. We know that actually it's working people who will come together and fight and win this. And that's our option. Solidarity!
Comrades, with all that's been going on, we have to remember there are workers on strike at the moment in this city with the University and College Lecturers Union, UCU, and next week there'll be Unison members at SOAS, I think, and possibly other places that are out as well on strike too. So we've got Des from the UCU Goldsmiths branch. They're in dispute, on strike at the moment. Des, over to you.
Thank you very much. I'm sending solidarity from the picket line of Goldsmiths. Today was our 30th day of strike action since November. It may not be the scale of the disgrace of 800 workers being sacked, but we are facing a fire and rehire scheme just the same, facing what was put to us as a deficit which has miraculously turned into a surplus for this year, but our management are still refusing to back down and are still saying they have to have they're going to have the right to make cuts and start cutting programs if that's what's necessary. So we've been out there for 30 days, we're not going away, and we want to see as much solidarity as possible, and just coming here is exactly what we need to make us keep going. One personal note, I live down the road from DP World's flagship project, London Gateway. It's put to us, people in Essex, how great DP World were, because they paid loads of money to move the birds and move the fish who were disrupted by the building of the London Gateway project. If they can fund the wildlife in Essex, but they can't fund 800 workers' jobs providing a critical service, what kind of world, what kind of system is this? There's people with grievances like this up and down the country. I would love to see a national protest where we bring everyone together. I would love to see us make calls that every worker who's got a grievance is on the picket lines supporting you over the next couple of weeks. Thank you very much. Please visit our picket line in New Cross. We would love to see you there. Solidarity.
The largest number of RMT members here today are our members from London Underground, who've come here from a mass meeting of reps to discuss the current dispute that the RMT has with London Underground over pensions, pay and a number of other issues. I'm just going to ask the NEC member, Jared Wood, to say a couple of words about that dispute for the enlightenment of the general public here.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing to say is we actually have members taking strike action tonight on London Underground. Some of our driver members on the Central Line and the Victoria Line who've had additional night duties imposed onto them in contradiction to existing agreements. They've been taking action now for months. They'll continue to take action. We're not going to accept those duties being imposed on our members. But we've also come from a meeting this afternoon with London Underground reps where we've been discussing what action we're going to follow up our strikes on the 1st and the 3rd of March week over our dispute with TfL over jobs, agreements and pensions. And what we're facing on London Underground is very similar, although taking place over a longer period of time, but a very similar battle to that our fellow members in P&O are now facing. It's the attempt by the employers to now come out of the COVID crisis and try and use that as cover to inflict a massive change in conditions, to cut jobs and to attack our benefits such as pensions. That's what we're facing on London Underground. They're talking about making changes to our pension that will result in people who work shift work all their lives around the clock, 24/7. They want to cut our pensions by 30% when you retire at the age of 60. That's the sort of thanks you get for keeping the service running throughout COVID and being the essential workers. Just a few months ago, there they are outside Downing Street and elsewhere, clapping, cheering on the essential workers. Get out of the crisis, and now it's we'll have your pension and we'll have your jobs. Yeah. They want us on flexible working. They want you at the mercy of your manager. Oh, we thought you were on a rest day on Thursday, now you're coming in. You thought you were on an early term Friday, no you're not, you're now on a late term. That's the sort of conditions that they want us working in. Pension cuts, and at the moment 600 job cuts proposed on London Underground stations. That means more of you turning up at a station and there's no member of staff available, no one to help you because they've cut that job, they've got rid of it. But that's just the start. We were told face to face by an EU director only last week that process will be repeated throughout every function of London Underground. Engineers, fleet maintenance workers, drivers, every single one, service controllers, the lot. They will be going through them and looking for job cuts and looking for ways to impose flexible working and cost cutting. So we've agreed this afternoon that we'll be putting on more strike action. We will be announcing and we will keep fighting until we get proper funding for Transport for London, the only city of its kind in the world where public transport is expected to run on a break-even basis, where you, the passengers, have to pay for the full costs of the services, while the banks and the big businesses, including this one here, based in London, who rely on public transport to get people into work, pay absolutely nothing towards the funding crisis that we now face. So we will keep striking, we will keep fighting till we get that guarantee. No job losses, no changes to agreement, and no changes to our pensions, and solidarity with our brothers and sisters in P&O.
There's a bit of information that's just come through that Dockers in Hull, which I believe may be Unite members, I'm assuming, although it doesn't say it in that article, have announced that they are going to refuse to let the Pride of York, which is one of the P&O vessels in Hull, to sail. So basically, And we've also got, events have been developing apace today, and we've been out on the road, so I'm not really up to date with all of the latest events that have been going on in Larne and Liverpool and Hull. But we are going to be working over the weekend. There's a lot of political work going on, and there's a lot of work going on, discussions with other trade unions about what we're going to do to meet this assault on our members next week. There will be action taking place, protests like this taking place next week. There's one in Scotland, in Cairn Ryan, the port in Ayrsh, Dumfries, which is taking place on Wednesday, and there will be further demonstrations announced over the weekend in London and in Dover, and we'll make sure that our union, the RMT union's website, and the ITF and other trade unions and other organisations are able to get that information and cascade it to their members. I'd like to thank you all for your support for our members today, and this has started, but it's not finished. We've got to get those people reinstated. That's our job, to get their jobs back. If they're out on the cobbles, we've got to get them back. We kept getting asked, the General Secretary of the RMT kept getting asked by journalists down in Dover about why we were in dispute with P&O. He said there's no dispute with P&O. They've locked us out. This is a lockout, right? And we've had lockouts before, famous lockouts in history. This is a lockout, and we've got to break the resolve, the political resolve of this company, and we can do that with united working class labour movement and solidarity. Thanks very much for coming along this afternoon.